Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 190 of the Alamodome Auto Podcast. This is your host, Jared Thomas, joined by my co-host, Adrian Bermudez. Adrian, how you doing, man? You feeling good after the little weekend getaway to Austin?
Feeling exhausted, but yes, feeling good. It was a whole lot of energy in there, and you could say I've still got a little bit surging through the arteries, indeed.
Yeah, I was like on an adrenaline high. Yeah, I mean, even well after the game, it was kind of weird to feel so great coming off of what on paper looked to be a blowout if you didn't actually watch the game. But great showing from UTSA, great showing from the fan base as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of great takeaways from this game. And just, like we said on last week's podcast, it's just a very validating feeling to see the Roadrunners on the field with the Longhorns going blow for blow, at least for 2 quarters, and having a bunch of UT fans pissed off, throw their hands over their head, it's
complete silence. Yeah.
There's these small moments where you feel like, okay, we've arrived or we are arriving. And that game was one of them for me.
Oh, without a doubt. It was a massive arrival moment. I think we talked about last week just how big of a stage it was and how important it was that we were finally here playing Big Brother. And you talk about that just being a validation itself, but then to actually show up the way that we did, going blow for blow, and then to force UT into a situation where they had to kind of put up or shut up there for a second. Yeah, I mean, there was a moment there in the in the Alamodome, in DKR, where you had burnt orange fans completely stunned. I mean, flabbergasted, bro, at just how good UTSA was playing and all 3 facets of the game, Jared.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just electric to watch, man. And that was probably, man, one of the most validating moments I've ever felt as a UTSA fan. And you think about those contests with Arizona back in the day where we were punching Arizona and Arizona State in the mouth and had them against the ropes. It was like that. It was like that again, but there was something that was more real about this and more dominant about this and just more impressive. I think the scale of all of it and being there, those moments happened in the Alamodome. This was happening in DKR. And so that said a lot. And dude, yeah, usually Sunday morning, man, your boy's a little bit slow getting out of the hotel motel, but man, I was awake. I was jazzed up. I was ready to get on the road or do anything. I just had all the energy in the world waking up Sunday after that game, man.
Yeah, I woke up early on Sunday as well. I was feeling great. I was like, no regrets being left in Austin after this.
However,
despite the loss.
However, I'll admit that walk through campus post-game, post-defeat, not high energy whatsoever. I'm just because you got to traverse a half a mile through UT's campus and you're surrounded by UT fans and they're doing the OU sucks things. It's like, this is weird. It doesn't make any sense. I don't like this. And yeah. Yeah, it was a rough walk through campus.
Only walking half a mile is pretty good, man. I think we did a full mile at least. We did a circle, it was a mess. And, I want to, this is why I warned everybody before the game, the tailgating is going to be rough and getting in and out of there is going to be a problem. And it sounds like it was worse than I even imagined.
Oh, man.
Hopefully next go around, people will be better prepared. I need to be better prepared because I told my friend before the game, I was like, we need to have an egress strategy. After the final whistle blows, where are we going? How are we getting out of here? And we failed to do that. We failed to prepare for that.
Was that dude, I think this was one of the realest moments in the Austin San Antonio Metroplex saga of it coming real, right? You had 3+ hour wait time on 35 from San Antonio to Austin, pretty much all day Saturday up until kickoff. I heard stories as long as 4 hours to get those 75, 85 miles, whatever it is. And then leaving, I heard stories of 1.5 to 2 hour waits in the parking garage just to exit the parking garage. 1.5 bumper to bumper, didn't move an inch in the parking garage. So dude, you talk about pandemonium, but the entire corridor from San Antonio to Austin was at that game, man. Really and truly.
If you had to ballpark it, how many fans do you think UTSA brought to DKR?
I mean, I've got to say between 10 and 15, and I'm going to go more on the mid to high side of that. I'm going to say probably 12, 13,000 to give it a real strong guess. I was saying during the tailgate, as you were kind of watching the mobs and groups of fans walking through the downtown streets and making their way into the stadium. There was absolutely 1 in every 10 UT fans was a UTSA fan. 1 in every 10 fans was a UTSA fan, right? And so I do feel like we made up 10% of the total volume. If there was 100,000 fans in there, I got to say we at least had 10 of them, right?
And that's about what I think too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And that was crazy to see. I didn't expect it. I thought we'd bring a good crowd. But wow, man.
We were everywhere.
Awesome.
We were absolutely everywhere. Everywhere you looked, there were UTSA fans, whether it was in the stadium or out on the streets. And then there were a lot of groups that had the mix. You saw a bunch of UTSA groups of, T-shirts for both, right? Mm-hmm. So that was really cool too. But definitely community event, big time.
Yeah. So how was your experience like in the stands and around the stadium, like with the other fan base?
So very cool. I was actually sitting right next to Sosa. I was in the UTSA visitor section, that 120 area. I got the pre-sale ticket for season ticket holders. So, that we had a big UTSA mix up there, but I'll be granted, we were also surrounded by Longhorns. And dude, we were up there in the nosebleeds. We were up there in the chief seats. So, I was up there with my t-shirt fans up there, dude. And I'm not sure how many were just actual Austinites than actual UT grads, but there was a lot of Austinites in the building. And I was one of the more louder, assertive UTSA fans out of the group. Definitely.
I'm shocked to hear that, Adrian.
Definitely out there getting passionate for the brand. And then, on the other side of my section, right? So I was kind of more on one end of the section. He was on the other end of it, but we were kind of approximate row wise. And he was like, dude, UT backwards hat guy, sunglasses on, all 4 quarters, dude, screaming at the top of his lungs. And we kind of had a little bit of a back and forth going, but it was never directed at each other. It was all a good spirit. Yeah. And so, I mean, you had UTSA fans and UT fans kind of throwing some jabs at each other, but also laughing and kind of clapping. And there was one group right in the row in front of us, older couple, probably 50s, 60s, and then there's their son or something. And dude, yeah, the mom, they were UT fans, and the mom was covering her ear every single time I would yell, but only the ear that, like, I was on her left side. So she would like go out of her way to stick her finger in her ear, like towards my direction. I was like, all right, lady. Man. They left at halftime and never came back, ran their asses out of there. So,
oh man, I feel her pain though. I feel her pain.
No. Yeah. She was mad at her husband for buying the nosebleed seats and not getting her in the lower bowl where she wanted to be sitting. I was like, come on now. I'm here with the people. It's going down. It's going down.
I had a very similar, very pleasant experience as well. I was not in the visitor section at all. It's completely random section, lower bowl. Yeah, it was pretty nice tickets. And, the fans around me knew very little about UTSA, but it was like a lot of like playful, respectful trash talking that was just fun, right? Like
it was, yeah.
Someone would say something about one team or the other, and like people would start giggling, kind of deal. Like it was never that serious where like they were going to be fisticuffs or anything like that.
Right.
It was a fun like ribbing back and forth, but there was like some younger kids around me, and some of them were from San Antonio, so some of them like knew people in Sosa. One of them went to school with Spencer Buford, right? So it was kind of cool, like talking with them. They were all like UT students or alumni. Nice. So it was pretty cool. But my two favorite moments in the crowd, first of all, I think whenever UTSA made it 10-7 or 17-7, I don't recall. But this guy sitting behind me, like a big old country looking fella, he yelled out, "We're not playing Bama anymore, guys. Get it together." And I turned around, I was like, "Hell yeah, brother. We're not Bama." So that was pretty awesome. Because I think UT was like leading Bama up until the fourth quarter, and it was like the opposite for us.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, that was cool. He was very mad at that, but we became bros. By the end of the game, we fist bumped each other at the end.
Very
and all
nice.
That good stuff.
Cool.
And then another guy, after Oscar made his second awesome catch, he like tapped me on the shoulder. He was like, "Sir, do you know what UT didn't recruit that tight end number 9?" I was like,
"Son, the respect for my boy Cardenas. Let's go."
There's there's just so many layers to that. Like the entitlement of the UT fan being like, oh, if we would have just recruited him, we would have had him, right? And
oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He would have been here automatic. Of course.
Yeah. But
Dude,
yeah,
that's
that was
amazing.
pretty funny. Yeah, I'll remember that one for a while. Yeah, it was a great experience, man. I mean, I've been to college football games all over the country. I've seen UTSA play all over. And that was one of the most fun experiences. Like the game day atmosphere was electric, dude. Like such a huge crowd. And man, I honestly thought like UT fans were kind of going to be like sitting on their hands a little bit throughout the game, that they wouldn't be that energized for UTSA. And maybe like the big traveling contingency of UTSA fans cheering kind of spurred them into action. But they were loud. They were loud and rowdy throughout the whole game.
They were hostile for sure. Yeah. There was a lot of back and forth, I mean, they were screaming and they were screaming. We were screaming when they weren't, but there was never a quiet moment at any time. Yeah. And just, I'm glad that you brought that up, dude, because I've never experienced a football atmosphere quite like that before. Yeah. To be up there in that top row and you see that 105,000 with the backdrop of the skyline and everybody raging, screaming, and the booms of the cannon and you get the cannons and the booms and all that. But I mean, that level of blue blood college football, right? I mean, that's really what it's all about. And man, that was, I had a pretty awestruck moment there in that first quarter when it really all started going down, man.
To me, it was a huge realization of the gap between the Texas of the world versus like the Oklahoma State and the Arizona States of the world. It's a whole different ball game, man. It was wild.
Dude, I tell you, yeah. Waco at the Baylor game.
Yeah.
College Station, Kyle Field was nothing like that, man. It really wasn't. Yeah. Not even close.
Yeah. That's crazy that you can't even compare A&M, right? That's
no,
to me.
Yeah. No, you can't. And part of it's a night game. Part of it, the traveling contingency. Part of it, I think, is just how much of a threat the Roadrunners really, really are, and they're being taken seriously. And when we played A&M, sure, we weren't that team. Possible upset, right? But dude, golly, I mean, you really felt it in that place. It was surging, man. It was really surging. You got to walk up 15 ramps to get there. It's like you're going to war, man. You're just walking through your battle and you're battle ready. Yeah, it was really cool. Really, really cool atmosphere in DKR, man. Electric.
My last observation of like the game day experience was that Bevo is a pretty hefty boy, and I knew he was big, but man, that is a monster of a cow, dude. That steer was
I really wanted
gigantic.
to get closer to him. I mean, I was sitting on the opposite side of the stadium, and he takes up like a significant portion behind the end zone. I heard somebody tried to get in there and ride him. Yeah. I don't know if that was a UTSA fan or UT fan. I hope it wasn't a Roadrunner.
It was a UT fan, but honestly, that dude kind of looked like me. I'm kind of surprised no one was like, oh, Jared went undercover to try to ride
UT's most wanted, bro. West Campus's most wanted, Jared. Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, what a magnificent creature. I wanted to ask you, this not being in the visitor section, being in the middle of the lower bowl right there, were you surrounded by a good chunk of UTSA fans?
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. I mean, like, not only the section I was in, but like sections all around me, right? Nonstop UTSA chants, let's go 210 chants. Everyone, like, people chanting Frank's name. I mean, yeah, it totally felt like if you were at a bowl game or something like that, where like, I had to say like neutral site to make it sound like it's 50-50 or something like that. But there was like so much cheering for UTSA that was like very easily heard. I don't know. My friend was like joking that I have eagle ears because I was like picking out all the chants everywhere. But yeah, it very much felt like not a home game, obviously, because like we were way outnumbered. But it didn't feel like, if you were to go watch UTSA play out on a Friday night in Murfreesboro in a couple weeks, right?
Sure.
It felt different. Yeah. And it was a great feeling.
Yeah. Incredible, man. So, all right, taking into consideration how great the game atmosphere was during the four quarters, but then how the subpar pregame action is with the lack of tailgating and the craziness and all that. And then post game, you're walking a couple of miles trying to figure out what the move is. Might not even be a move. What is the overall temperature when we talk about all together comprehensive DKR Austin Longhorn game day experience? Will you be going back to DKR whenever we play them again?
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. And, I said this on a previous podcast, but I think like UTSA fans just don't know how good we have it for tailgating.
Mm,
Like the tailgating scene at UT is better than what you're going to see at most schools, right? It
wow.
sucks. It sucks compared to UTSA, but most places you go do not have the tailgating availability, infrastructure, accessibility, all that stuff, right? So, I think like next time I'm just not going to even try to tailgate. I'm just going to go to bars, right? And
Sure.
just
Yeah.
walk right into the game,
I
right?
feel like that's the right call. Yeah.
I
That's
was
the right
mostly
call.
hanging out at Scholl's Garden, like right down the street. And that was great, dude.
Hmm.
Great. Pretty good number of UTSA fans. We had kind of set up our own little section back there.
Hmm.
Quick to get drinks and food and stuff like that. It was just like, cash payments for everything, right? That was great. So I think I'll do that again next year. But probably even further away from campus.
Sure.
So yeah, it's probably a 9 out of 10 for me, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Being inside that stadium was absolutely surreal, and it definitely overrides any lack of tailgating option or anything like that. And the fact that we travel so heavy, just phenomenal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll go 8 out of 10. I'll go 8.5. 8.5 out of 10, or 8 out of 10 altogether, 9 out of 10 be inside that stadium. Hell, maybe even 10. Maybe even 10 out of 10. It was incredible.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever see an atmosphere like that for another UTSA game.
Right.
It'd be tough to match,
It was a perfect storm. It really, really
Yeah,
was. It was a perfect storm
Yeah.
to create that game day atmosphere that it was. But man, what an electric environment, man. Phenomenal. One you'll remember forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. So we're of course going to actually break down some football here after we just wax poetic about the beauty of college football and regional rivalries and all that good stuff. But before we do, we want to give our Patreon shout outs as always. We actually brought back this weekend our post game calls, which we made a tradition of last year. With me having traveled so much, well, I could both of us have traveled, for 2 out of 3 games, 3 out of 3 myself. It's kind of hard to do them when you're on the road, like jumping in between airport terminals and stuff like that. We brought it back last week and people seem to enjoy it. We'll try to keep those going for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Just another great perk that you get as a Patreon member. Had another film breakdown, again, a little bit shorter because Longhorn Network kind of screwed me. Nonetheless, but be sure to check us out on Patreon if you want more UTSA coverage. Thank you to our newest subscriber, a good friend, Brandon Patron, joined us at the big money donor tier. Shout out to 361 Port Lavaca Sandcrafts.
What up?
Brandon. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As always, shout out to all of our big money donors, Ben Tovar, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, the Bunch family, Zach Espericueta, the San Antonio Podcast Network, and our board of trustees members, Digiteek, John Alwell, Lino Perez of Los Dos Rowdy Tailgating, Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird King Tailgate, Ray Redding and Meet Me Apparel, and last but not least, Brandon Grill and the Grill Realty Group. While we're on the subject of Patreon, we're also going to bring another thing back this week. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I didn't try very hard, but I feel like it would have been tough to find a Texas Southern writer or podcaster to come on for a guest interview this week. I don't know. If I drop the ball and I miss someone obvious, shame on me. But I think what we'll do instead is have a little mailbag episode. I know people have been asking for that. It's been a while. I think it's a pretty good time to do it now that we're 3 games into the season.
Yeah.
Kind of getting a better feel for how the college football season is going to play out as a whole. I know NIL is still a hot topic, all that. So I'm going to put a post up on the website at alamodomeaudible.com. It'll be like mailbag question submission or something like that. Just log into your account on the website or sign up for a free one. If you don't, leave a comment on there and we'll try to answer as many of those questions on the Patreon podcast as we possibly can this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be really cool. It's been a little while since we've got to do a mailbag.
Yeah.
And we'll take stock of our after the hardest 3-game road trip in UTSA history.
Yeah.
We'll really try to kind of sit back and zoom out because we're going to be talking a lot about Texas today. So we'll try to zoom out and just recap, take stock, and maybe count our bumps and bruises coming out of the 3-game gauntlet that was UH Army in Texas.
Yeah, and feel free to ask us off-topic questions. I mean, whatever you want to. I mean, we're game for anything: music, food, whatever.
Bring back the old school wacky stuff.
Marriage planning advice. Adrian and I are becoming experts in that now. All right, man. Well, let's start talking football. Roadrunners and Longhorns meet for the first time. Man, UTSA put up a hell of a fight. Hell of a fight. What's your main takeaway from the game if you had to pick just one thing?
tit for tat, matched them. I think I really, really think matched them. When you talk about the guys on the field, the talent on the field, UTSA absolutely has the talent and the caliber to play. They belong on that stage, not to sound too cheesy, but they belong there. Right. Mm-hmm. And it really, really solidified, legitimized. I mean, dude, I think going up 17-7 over Texas in DKR on Saturday night may have been more legitimizing of a moment than hoisting a Conference USA trophy in the
No, I can't get down with that. No, sir.
You don't think so?
No, I can't. I
think it's huge, though. I think it's huge.
No, that's such like a San Antonio radio bro take right there, dude. I can't stand for that one, man.
I think it's absolutely massive when you go up 17-7 after those double haymakers with the onside kick and then the double flea flicker. I think there's a moment there. And maybe that's a step too far, but I do think it's like that caliber. I want it to be like top moment in program history, top 5, top 3 in my opinion. It's absolutely tremendous. When you go up on that, when you go up on them and you have the Longhorns up against the ropes, the very first time you ever played them, 11-year in your history, Big Brother institution, 105,000 fans. It is pretty damn big deal. And so that really, really just to me in that moment echoed like, holy cow. Because I don't think I had any expectation of that moment occurring in that game on Saturday. I thought UTSA was going to play awesome. I thought they were going to have their moments where they shined. But what happened during that sequence was quite literally unbelievable. It was unreal, man. It was unreal.
True. Well, you just made a lot of bold claims. I'm still a little shell-shocked, to be honest with you. I'm going to try to reel myself in.
Good. I want you to be shell-shocked.
You know, we always say we agree too much. We need to get some hot takes out here, stir up some controversy on the pod. And you're doing a great job, man. That's a lot. That was a lot. But while I disagree, that's the top 5 moment in UTSA football history. I know where you're coming from. It was a very, very good feeling. But let's talk about that sequence for just a bit, right? So Roschon Johnson caught like a little play action dump pass out of the backfield. I think Clifford Chapman took a bad angle, whipped on the tackle. Roschon Johnson runs it in for a touchdown, right? UT takes a 7-3 lead right at the beginning of the second quarter. And then beautiful onside kick execution from UTSA. So ballsy to go for the onside kick that early in the game.
Crazy.
At the time, I was like, they had to have seen something on film that made them feel like it was like a 90% chance they were going to recover it. And sure enough, I went back and watched, and UT had a really bad habit of leaving early to go block on kickoffs, right? So those guys had already backed 5-10 yards off the line of scrimmage. Well, not the line of scrimmage, but what do you call it on a kickoff? Like the line of return?
Right, because there's that zone where you can't do anything to
there's a 10-yard buffer.
Right, the buffer, and then
Yeah. So I can't remember the terminology in the rule book, but whatever the line is where the return team lines up at, they were already 5 to 10 yards upfield before Sackett hit the ball. Right. So they obviously been doing that for a while.
Just on his windup as he's walking, as he's running up to kick it. They're jogging back already.
Yeah. And UTSA totally saw that on film, right? So they knew they had a good shot. As long as Jared could just, get that ball 10 yards. And great recovery from Jamori Robinson, run down there and dove on the ball, protected it as well, put his whole body around it, wrapped it up really good. That's why he made the Triangle of Toughness Special Teams Player of the Week.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to him. Big play. Probably the biggest play of his career so far, if I had to guess. And then UTSA wasted no time to capitalize on that key turnover, man. Freaking, what was it? A swing pass to Brendan Brady that went backwards, and he fires a rocket to Zachary Franklin in double coverage with a defender in his face. It might have been one of the coldest plays I've ever seen UTSA run.
Filthy.
And what a catch from Zachary too. I feel like the catch kind of got minimized a bit by just how ballsy of a play call and like how crazy of a sequence it was, man. Fantastic.
Well, it's great that you bring that up about the onside kick, because Traylor even said in the post game or in today's round table, you always never know. If we don't make a couple more mistakes, there might be another onside kick coming. And we're really trying to see what we can do with that thing. And so I think you have a great point of the scouting, that they saw that they could get away with that. And that's why they pulled it out so early, because, man, it was early to go for that. And then the trick play, the flea flicker. So through that sequence, that UTSA just pulling out all the stops to get an early opening, or like you say, it's more analytical. They think that they've got good reason to expose a couple of things with these play calls.
Yeah, I mean, there was no doubt when you look at UTSA's coaching lineup, how many of those guys had coached at UT and not been retained or gotten fired. Those guys were going to pour their heart and soul into the game prep, and they did an awesome job. I think they found a lot of ways not only to exploit some weaknesses on the Longhorns' part, but also to give UTSA's players ample opportunities to shine and show their talent. Another thing I was really impressed with, I thought Will Stein called a great game. I feel like they were both able to reduce the number of possessions for the Longhorns while also playing at a high tempo and giving their playmakers abilities to make big plays down the field. That's hard to do. It's hard to balance those three things, right? I was really impressed with Will Stein. So much so I'm starting to get worried UTSA is going to have a third offensive coordinator in 3 years, because he's done a great job in the first 3 games. And I know Frank Harris makes his job easy, but this offensive line certainly doesn't, right? No. I've been really impressed with Coach Stein, first-year coordinator. Homecoming game for him. You know, he coached at UT for a while, and he was an offensive coordinator like Travis, right? So obviously he's got a ton of friends at the game there, and it's a cool moment for him. Like Coach Burke, Coach UT, obviously Coach Traylor, and the list goes on and on and on. So just really impressed with the way the UTSA was coached. You know, even outside of like the penalty stuff and you know, some mental mistakes and all that, the game preparation was fantastic.
It 100% was. You talk about us being able to exploit some weaknesses with some of the calls, but also we were able to kind of hide some of ours and play up our strengths extremely well against a team that we weren't sure if we were going to be able to hold our own. And I think you saw a lot of improvement whenever we looked at the offensive line. Those guys really, I think, held their own and improved across the mark. And that was probably one of the biggest takeaways for me when we were looking at the offense is just how well they were able to hang with UT for as long as they could. When we're talking about walk-ons, right, and a sophomore underclassmen playing in their third game, right, as a UTSA Roadrunner, their third real game situation. It was really impressive. I mean, clearly they're learning fast. They're picking up things quickly and correcting a lot of the mistakes they've been making. Hell, Vinley Tatapu didn't even have a single holding penalty through the whole game. And
dude, Vinley played great. That was
amazing.
That was the biggest shock of the game for me.
Leaps and bounds. I mean, week over week improvements. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable from him.
And it's not just like UTSA was playing any Power 5 program or really just any strong program. This is a defensive front that terrorized Alabama the week before. They made Bryce Young look like, I wouldn't say a scrub, but they made him look like a normal quarterback, right? He didn't look like a Heisman candidate because he had so much pressure in his face. You know, and Frank Harris, you know, he took some hits, right? There was some pressure there. But UTSA did a much better job protecting Frank than Alabama did protecting Bryce Young. And that is insane to think about, given all that UTSA's had to deal with at the offensive tackle position. You know, the Northwestern transfer goes down before the season even starts. Mekhi Hart gets hurt in the first series of the season. Demetrius Allen was out for a while. He comes back and he gets hurt in the first series against UT. Man, it's just like nonstop. This poor offensive tackle position has been through so much, and for them to have the kind of performance they had against Texas, and that's not to say they were perfect or even great, but for them to not be disastrous is a huge achievement, man. Absolutely massive achievement.
Yeah, and you were really able to see the push up. You really saw the push from the offensive line illustrated through the run game. Brendan Brady was able to tote the rock pretty efficiently against a Longhorn team, and he was doing it by himself. Unfortunately,
no
Traylon Smith in, which I think, man, really would have been a hell of a difference maker. No Traylon Smith, he got a little bit banged up in the game against Army, which is something we were speculating on last week. Yeah, and Brendan come in, tote the ball 21 times and be efficient. get a couple of big gaps in there. Hell, there were a couple of holes that opened up, and not only that, but the pass protection was really well too for a lot of that game.
Frank had some nice pockets. I mean, I was shocked how many plays there were where there was like play action or Frank was in an empty set and he sat back in the pocket for 3 or 4 seconds. I did not think that was going to happen this game. I thought he would be having to get the ball out ASAP. And surprisingly, I mean, UT secondary, I would say they locked up UTSA's big three, but they didn't make it easy. They had a couple of coverage sacks. I would say this is probably the only secondary UTSA is going to see this year that can do that and put a clamp down on those 3 guys. So that made me feel really good. It might be the last time this year we see a team get a coverage sack against UTSA. All credit to the Longhorn secondary. They were great. I was so impressed with their physicality. There were like 2 different plays that I thought for sure was a touchdown. And one of UT's safeties just came flying in and laid the freaking wood on like the 1 or 5 yard line.
Oh like my gosh.
Yeah. Some really special players back there for sure.
Yeah. That was real big boy hitting right there.
Yeah.
There was a couple examples of that, but no, Frank, and I think Frank did a phenomenal job of reacting to pressure too. I mean, he got hurried out of the backfield probably a good 4 or 5 times. He only got sacked once. He was being a little bit smarter with tucking the ball, running a little bit more, getting it out of there, and just being a little bit more cerebral. Sometimes we've seen him get flustered when that pocket starts to collapse. So he was a little bit better with that this week. And offensive line did a hell of a job protecting him and giving him that time to really go through those reads. But no, I think you make a good point. Secondary was, I don't want to say better than I expected because I knew they were going to be good, but you look at UTSA's trio of receivers and you like to think there's nothing that they can't do, but man, a lot of those guys were stuck on like glue. And then the number of balls that were batted down, not just by cornerbacks, but even at the line of scrimmage too. I mean, guys just smart and have the wherewithal to know where the ball is and to get a hand up, try to get an arm on it, it's those small little things. Yeah. And it's not just one guy that is conscious of and doing those small little things. It's half of the guys that are on that field. It's a majority of the guys that are on that field. And that's really the difference maker, right?
Let's run through the injury situation for UTSA as best as we can.
Oh man. Yeah.
I want to do the sandwich technique where like it's a lot of good and then some bad and then you come back to the good to end it. I don't know if you've ever heard that strategy of like delivering bad news. Yeah. UTSA has 21 players on their injury report right now. 6 of them got MRIs today. I think 7 of them are on the offensive line. It sounds like Demetrius Allen's probably going to be out for a while again. Mekhi Hart's still out long term. Hebert, however you say his name, Northwestern transfer, still MIA. Sounds like Luke LePage went down, who's been playing great football for UTSA as a redshirt freshman. Or is he a sophomore? I don't know. But he's really young. He has great blocks against the Longhorns, man, against some NFL talent, interior defensive lineman.
Yep.
Adrian Taylor went down. He was seen in his arm sling. I think Adrian, Danye, and Pick Cage all got hurt, all the same position. We'll have to see what the severity is for those guys. Gosh, man, there's so many more.
I think for
those
Adrian,
stick on to me.
Yeah, I think for Adrian, it's that one might be a little bit more significant than we thought. I think Traylor kind of hinted at that during his interviews.
Yeah.
There's a lot, man. It's really, really bad. And you're talking about the offensive line struggle. It says the most frustrating thing he's ever dealt with as a head coach. And that was already bad enough. But now, after Saturday, it's banged up at a few more positions as well, not just offensive line. And that's really, really scary. I think UTSA, we talked about this in the preseason. The way our schedule works is in waves. And we just got through the hardest and heaviest wave that you could imagine. But now we've got this sequence here through Middle Tennessee and Texas Southern over the next 2 weeks, where I think UTSA has got a tremendous opportunity to get healthy over the next 2 weeks. And, if you've got to play a lot of twos against Texas Southern, so be it. Play the twos and play the threes for 3 quarters.
I was going to say, some positions you're down to the threes.
Yeah.
Right.
And You just got to do that. And against Middle Tennessee, you got to get out to an early lead, and you got to try to do that again and really try to just give those guys some rest, man, and try to rehab and get as many people as you can back until we really get the meat of the conference play in October.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to talk about as well is, I mean, with the freshmen, they have 4 games to use, and you want to use them
for sure
as much as you can for development purposes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not willing to label the Middle Tennessee game as like a scout team is playing kind of deal yet. I mean, I hope UTSA can take care of business and get to that point. But for Texas Southern, I mean, I think that you got to put those young guys out there earlier than you would probably like, regardless of score.
For sure.
You have to get those guys ready to play. There are really no options left for UTSA. They have to get DeAndre Marshall and Ben Rios ready to play at offensive tackle, because it's just one more fall off of a scooter on campus. It's one more slip coming out of the shower. It's one more twisted ankle at practice away from those guys getting forced in action. And you want to ease them into it by getting them some snaps against Division I competition outside of practice. It's super critical. Gosh, man, I really hope this doesn't end up being the case, but I don't see a way that those guys keep their red shirt this year with all the injury struggles UTSA's had at the offensive tackle position. I think some of the other spots, I think like that is it the Will linebacker spot, the one that the Taylor brothers are at?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it the Sam? I don't know.
Sam, the Taylor brothers.
That position, you could probably move some guys around, right? You have some older guys too that haven't played as much. I think there's a little bit more depth there that you can feel comfortable with. But offensive tackle, there's nothing left, man. The cupboard is completely barren. You're probably looking at some guards having to run a tackle in practice now. So you got to get those guys ready to play this week. Absolutely.
How does this change UTSA's Jeff Traylor's approach to linemen going into recruiting and going into off seasons? Does it change the priority level of it after having to deal with this? Does it change how you prioritize getting some hogs on the offensive line, hell, on both sides of the line when you enter an off season?
It's kind of a tough question. And the off season, I was kind of critical of Jeff Traylor for not getting another transfer offensive tackle. They got Hebert from Northwestern, but he hadn't played in like 4 years, right? And that was just like probably the main position of need for UTSA coming into the season. But then I went and looked through the transfer portal for off the tackle position. There weren't a lot of great options, man. I mean, even sure. Guys that were like honorable mention all conference FCS players were going all the way up to like blue blood programs, right? They were going to like the LSUs of the world and stuff like that. So the market is crazy for offensive tackles in the transfer portal. And it's so tough to find any high school recruit that you feel really good about throwing out there as a freshman, right? I mean, there's been great reviews for Marshall and Rios already, but physically those guys do not look like they're ready to step in and start at offensive tackle. They might be forced to, but in an ideal world, they would get another year in the Philo weight plan and get bulked up, right? Right.
Yeah. 100%, dude.
Were there some hidden gems in JUCO out there that maybe UTSA could have found and molded into a backup offensive tackle? Probably. But man, it's tough, dude. Like, I don't doubt that was a top priority for them, but that's the hardest position to recruit to. And, I think we got really lucky with Spencer Buford that he was about a 4-year starter. Because think about it. I mean, how many great offensive tackles has UTSA had throughout their program history? I mean, through 12 years, I would say maybe there's been 5 guys that you would feel good about starting any season, give or take. 5 through 12 years. I mean, it's a tough position to recruit to.
Yeah. Yeah. What about flipping to the other side of the ball?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about offensive tackle. Let's talk about defensive tackling and the absolute problem it is, the impossibility it is for UTSA to bring down Bijan Robinson. Just a completely different scale of athlete, a football player, definitely an exception. UTSA, I think, matched up really, really well against UT, right? And we definitely have the caliber to hang with them. But you look at a guy like Bijan, and there's not too many players at too many schools, period, that can keep up with the Bijan Robinson.
They struggled tackling Roschon Johnson too. And
sure. Yeah.
The funny thing is, I was like watching those guys do their do their magic down on the field. And I was like, oh, Roschon's like the speed back. He's a smaller guy. And then I looked him up, and of course, he was a 0.91 24/7 rating, 4-star running back, and he's 6'2", 215 pounds. But Bijan makes him look small.
Right.
So I think the main thing is there's nothing you can do in practice to simulate that. There's really not. I mean, that's another reason why I think recruiting is so important that people sleep on, is even those like high 3-star guys that come in and eat like, oh, they're a bust, they're not playing or whatever. That's still just a level of athleticism, physicality that you're going to go against in practice every day that gets you ready for those kind of players, like those 4-star, 5-star guys, right? No offense to any of the running backs on UTSA's roster, but they don't give a look in practice anything like going against those guys, right?
No way.
So that's why it's so critical that you just keep a really strong, stable stable of running backs that you can give your defense like those reps against. You got to take this kind of pursuit ankle. You got to come with this kind of force on your initial hit and all of that. Does it? I mean, at the end of the day, does it make a huge difference? Yeah, probably. But then sometimes you see plays. Avery Morris had one where he met Bijan Robinson in the backfield for what would have been 3-yard loss, popped him as hard as he could, chest to chest, wrapped up, kept his feet driving, and Bijan still just ran him over for like an extra 10 yards.
Did everything right. Did everything he was supposed to do right. Yeah. Now, it's just different.
If UTSA had a high 3-star, 4-star running back that had like something resembling Bijan's skill set, would that make Avery Morris such a better tackler that he makes that tackle? I don't know, maybe, but at least gives him a fighting chance.
Yeah, I think Traylor summarized it best, and I assume when he said this quote in the post game presser, he was specifically referring to Bijan Robinson, but he said there's a gap. It's not an effort, it's not an execution, but there's a gap. And he was talking about just that caliber of that upper elite top 1%. I mean, dude, 20 carries, 183 yards, 9-yard average. And just the way he was bouncing off of guys, just a strength that is completely unlike anything that you'll see in Conference USA or any G5 conference for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, the 5-star talent is one thing, but I think the other part of that too is the depth, right? We really saw UTSA wear down in the second half against Texas. And
yes,
I mean, I think you can really see it, especially like in some of the linebackers and secondaries, like their speed getting into the edge was so much different in the second half than the first half because they were tired, right? Anytime UTSA rolled in not every time, they did have some pretty nice outings with the second string, but most of the time when they rolled the second string out there against Texas, it was a pretty big drop off. And that's not usually the case for UTSA. I mean, usually when you go and you even playing Houston and Army, it was hard to tell production wise when the second string was in. Against Texas, it was super notable. Like the Longhorns moved the ball way better when that second string defense was in. And there's a lot of good players on second string too. So I think that's a big part of it too, is, having those guys that are strong enough, athletic enough for whatever, to rotate in throughout the game, and just not having to feel like you got to play your starters, 60, 70, 80 snaps or whatever to even have a chance.
And so we got to stay abysmal here for just a little bit longer.
I was done with it. What do you got?
There's not a lot. I don't think it's too much to harp on or really get on about. And this particular game was different because we were playing in DKR side in front of 105,000 people. A couple mental mistakes. There's another 10 penalty game for UTSA. And we definitely beat ourselves to a degree. There was, I think, an opportunity for this final scoreboard to maybe be a little bit closer than it ended up being in the fourth quarter because we let some plays get away from us earlier, and we had some mental mistakes, some issues happen. There were some false starts that got called. Just the volume was crazy in that place. You heard Traylor talking about they were pumping noise. I think we had a headset. We had headset communication go out in the second quarter. So UT was pulling all the stops, but we saw those issues. We saw those penalty issues continuing to happen. It's a trend now through 3 weeks. We're already at 37% of last season's 14 game penalty total. 27.
Got another stat for you.
What's
I
that?
might have this. I might be off by one spot, but UTSA is tied for like 12th worst in the country in penalties per game.
I believe it. I absolutely believe it. We didn't have a single 10 penalty game in all of 2021. Right now, we're averaging 8.7. We had 10 against Army, 10 against Texas. And you can't chalk it all up to inexperience and immaturity and
It's a mix of issues.
A real heavy pressure from intimidating schedule. Look, I get all that stuff. But too many of them have been common, too many issues kind of happening over and over again. But I think that's just, it's certainly an issue that shouldn't be written off entirely.
Yeah. Coach Traylor was pretty dismissive of it in his media roundtable today.
I don't like that. I don't like that because he wears a lot of the blame for this. I think you could put a little more onus on it. Needs to be cleaned up.
There are two types of penalties in football as far as like what causes them. There are penalties caused by aggression, by like getting beat but wanting to protect your teammates. I think of stuff like a late hit, holding a guy that got you beat in pass protection, stuff like that. Those it's easier for me to write off, but the procedural stuff, having too many guys in motion in the snap and 12 men on the field, 10 men on the field, that kind of stuff like that. That's the stuff that really kills me because it's unforced, right? It's one thing when there's an All-American rushing you, and if you don't hold, he's going to take your quarterback's head off, or you're just really amped up and you're juiced and, you hit a guy when you shouldn't and you get called for unnecessary roughness or whatever. Like those are easier for me to let slide or whatever. Sure. And those, I want to say, are more easily correctable. I don't know. Could be wrong about that. I'm not a coach. But the ones where you're taking a touchdown off a board, taking a touchdown off the board because someone was in motion when they weren't supposed to be and stuff like that, those are really brutal. Those have to get fixed.
Right.
That's how you let a bad team beat you, when you do stuff like that.
Sure.
Usually the other penalties, it's like it's a close game, two good teams, or you're already getting beat, stuff like that. But man, they got to get these guys a little bit sharper on the field, And specifically what was bothered me a lot are the difficulty that UTSA has with their defensive substitution packages. I don't know if they need to simplify them or what, but I feel like at least every quarter, I notice a play where guys are pointing back and forth at each other, running on the field, running off the field, running on the field back in,
It's chaotic.
It's chaotic. Yeah, it's chaotic.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've noticed that. Wow. Good take. So now it's got to get cleaned up. We haven't seen this from Jeff Traylor's teams over the past 2 years. So it's happening now. And so, it needs to be cleaned up. It needs to be cleaned up, especially when we're losing points for it. Right. Inexcusable on that front.
Yeah. And I have total trust in Jeff and his staff that he's going to get it cleaned up. I'm not really worried about it long term. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd agree with you there as well.
Yep.
But yeah.
So let me give my biggest positive on the defensive side of the ball before I don't know if we're going to talk more about defense or just move on to Texas Southern, but I thought Corey Mayfield and Nick Fortune played an incredible football game.
Yes.
Those guys were going up against multiple NFL talent receivers, Jordan Whittington, Xavier Worthy, even Jatavion Sanders, hasn't got a whole lot of run for Texas this year. Incredible talent. They did a fantastic job against those guys. Longest pass to the air for Texas was just 26 yards. Xavier Worthy had 41 yards over 7 targets. It's amazing. Wow. There were several plays where I think Hudson Card underthrew a little bit, and Corey Mayfield was able to make up the difference after getting beat and get back to that ball even after getting beat initially, which is huge, right? I'm super high on these guys, man. I think that they're doing an incredible job. Fortune's been great all season. Mayfield's a little bit more up and down, but those guys showed just how talented they are, right? And I hope that gives them a huge confidence boost going into the rest of the schedule. Because if they can hang with Whittington and Worthy, they can cover anybody in this conference, man.
Well, I think in general, you've really got to tip your hat to UTSA secondary, right? Texas only got 161 yards receiving through the air, and Hudson Card was playing, right? And we weren't expecting him to be back there. We didn't think they were going to try to back up, throw the ball at all. And sure, they leaned on Bijan Robinson for a lot of the game, and Roschon Johnson got a hell of a lot of snaps as well. But we were to really nullify what they were able to do through the air almost entirely. Right. And I think a huge credit to that is all through the secondary, because there wasn't a whole lot of pressure getting to Hudson Card.
Yeah, no, not at all.
We didn't sack him a single time.
Yeah. And he was hurt too. He wasn't moving around very well.
No, not at all.
He did have that. He had that one long run where he took off, but that was like a straight line. Right. Like moving laterally is so much harder when you have an ankle injury than running straight.
And what's up with that? Is that UT's offensive line gets bigger and stronger than UTSA's pass rush, backfield rush? Or were we not playing very well?
I think it's more the former than the latter, if I had to guess. It could be scheme related. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't see a lot of guys winning their one-on-ones. So I think that's just talent related, if I had to guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think we were bringing too much as far as blitzing goes.
Yeah.
It sure didn't seem like it. No, but it's phenomenal job from the secondary. You got to tip your hat to him. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Hudson Card, what'd you think of the guy? Because there's a pretty good chance he might be in the transfer portal in a couple months.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good looking. We saw him kind of banged up.
Yep.
And he still was able to complete a lot of his passes. He's a good passer. He's a good passer, right? And I don't know. I don't know if I've watched him enough to know too much more about him.
But good game manager too.
Pure passing wise, right? Game manager, right? He's like one of those textbook coaches, quarterback kind of guys.
Yeah.
From what I've seen.
Yeah.
No, I think he's good.
Just keep in mind, UTSA's offense coordinator coached him in high school.
Yeah.
I recall. Saying.
Yeah.
So that was another subplot I was watching throughout the game. I was doing a little scouting, a little eval on Mr. Card. Should he, want to reconvene with a familiar face with some really talented players around him? Neither here nor there. Neither here nor there.
Very interesting. Also, big shout out UTSA defense holding Texas to only 4 out of 11 on third down.
Yeah, it's huge. And the rushing stats, I think, don't tell the full story. Like you look at this box score, and Texas ran for 8.3 yards per carry, netted almost 300 yards rushing. But a lot of those, almost all that yardage came on like just a handful of big plays. Right. And a lot of those were Bijan or Roschon being just incredibly elusive and powerful. Right. As far as like the actual run fits go, the scheme, God, I don't know. I almost said the tackling, right? Tackling was rough, regardless of who the running back was. But what I mean to say is if UTSA was playing like a Conference USA team or even a team in the American, I think the run defense would have looked really, really good in the stat sheet at the end of that day. Because I think like the yardage as you saw Texas gain through the air was more of a product of their running backs being freaking incredible. Correct. Than UTSA's run defense being poor. Correct.
Yeah, Bijan Robinson was doing it real easy out there. And if he's not Texas running back, UTSA's got a lot more of a puncher's chance in that game. I mean, the Roadrunners had the ball for 36 minutes to UT's 24. Yeah. There were really elongated UTSA drives where we were consistently getting first downs, moving the chains, and those short passes and chunk yards that we do so well, but we couldn't finish once we crossed midfield, got into opponent territory, scoring territory. There were even some sequences where we seemed to we would start with maybe 2 run plays on first and second down. I don't know. It was kind of weird when we kind of were in some rhythm passing the ball, but whatever, nor here or there. But there were a lot of really good long Roadrunner drives sustained that didn't end in points.
They got to the 1 yard line and only got 3 points out of it. That's tough.
That one was brutal, and you got to get it. You're supposed to earn it whenever you need that 1 yard, right? You just line up and you go get it. And I even think we did a couple of cute things on that.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up earlier. What was up with them using Kavorian Barnes as a goal line running back? That was really weird, right?
That was strange. Yeah.
He's like the smallest running back on the roster. I don't know, man.
I thought it was weird. And I would like to see in those short sequences, 3rd and 1 inches, whatever it is. I would like to see us have a little bit more confidence to just get under center and push for that yard.
At least for one attempt. Yeah.
Come on. We always line up in the shotgun. And you're there on the goal line and you're lined up in shotgun. And it's like, that just screams that we don't have the confidence in our upfront to push ourselves into the line, and we should.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't want to be too critical because UTSA's been so good in the red zone this season.
Yes.
And I'm sure the game plan was thrown off a bit by Traylor Smith being out, but that didn't sit well with me. I thought it was strange.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe Ty Edwards is not the back that we thought he was. But I don't know. I thought that was a little concerning.
Mm-hmm. I have a point there.
Last question. If Bijan Robinson doesn't play, Hudson Card doesn't play, Charles Wright starts at quarterback, and Roschon Johnson is the primary running back for the Longhorns, does UTSA pull off the upset? Yes or no?
Dude, oh my God. So it's hard. It's hard because you got to think our lunch pail guys still get gassed up front, right? Towards the end of that fourth quarter. But UTSA's got a 17-7 lead in the first half. So if that's extended by another touchdown or two, and now this this UT lineup that you've just given to me, if they have to battle back from down 17 points, I mean, it's a hell of a lot different. It's a lot of different dynamic in the second half. And I think UT being able to tie that game going into the locker room was a massive momentum swing for both teams going into halftime.
I don't think Hudson Card made a mental mistake the whole game either. Like, you got to think that Charles Wright would have made a couple playing his first real, Division I snaps. And I don't know. It's a great what if. It's funny going to the game. I was like, oh, Texas has all these injuries. It's going to level the playing field a little bit. UTSA is going to have a puncher's chance. It ended up being UTSA that had all the injuries. That was kind of ironic and unfortunate.
Yeah, Steve Sarkisian said we're not taking any chances with the Roadrunners. We're bringing the whole house.
Yes, dude.
The whole house.
That was a massive sign of respect from Coach Sark that he played as many guys as he could.
Yeah,
because I think he knew that he couldn't afford to not have his dudes out there.
No, even if they were a little banged up,
he was like,
you're gonna have to go down with the ship on this one, man, and you're gonna have to really tough it out and play it out because we can't take any chances against these Roadrunners. Yeah,
I mean, like credit to Sark for doing that, but I thought that was pretty cool. I mean,
massive respect.
2019 and before UTSA, they would have sat all those guys and they would have won by 20, 30 points anyways.
So there was massive respect for UTSA from pundits and talking heads kind of all throughout the week. Vegas gave us a lot of credit, right? Less than 2 possessions on the spread. And taking all of that into consideration, and then this, right, even the respect that UT as a ball club and Steve Sarkisian has given us, did the UTSA live up and play up to that expectation, that respect that they were kind of given across the national media landscape throughout the week going up into the game?
In my opinion, yeah, I think so. Because I think the Longhorns played a really good game. I thought they were very clean. Other than the onside kick recovery, they didn't really shoot themselves in the foot at all. I mean, they played a pretty good game. They did have some penalty issues of their own, I guess you could say. But if you look at a traditional, G5 or P5 upset, there's always like some critical pick six or
mistake,
turnover, field goal, return for a touchdown, all that kind of stuff. Right. So you always need a little bit of help when you're the G5 and you don't have the depth. And UTSA didn't really get the break that they needed. In fact, it was UT that got it with the pick six from Frank. Right?
Huge, yeah.
I mean, I think as far as like play-by-play basis, I think UTSA totally lived up to the hype. And I think that's why, like, when you look around the internet, anywhere you look, you just see Longhorn fans heaping praise on this UTSA team and Coach Traylor, because they know that, we had him on the ropes for a little bit. This is a special team. There's a ton of talent on this roster. So I think that proves the point.
Same reaction from Cougar fan and the U of H fan base after week one. Yeah. So put them on notice, old UTSA.
Yep. Well, cool. Let's wrap up the Longhorns. We'll take a very late commute break. We're already an hour in, but we do got to preview Texas Southern real quick. And you know me, I did just as much prep for Texas Southern as I would for any Conference USA program.
As he did the Texas Longhorns. Yes,
I know. I watch more film for Texas Southern than UT.
Let's go. Only on Alamo Dome Audible.
All right, y'all, we're back from a quick cumbia break, and we're going to give you guys a quick preview of the Texas Southern Tigers. This is an interesting team to preview because they historically have been one of the worst FCS programs in the country for many years running. Even though they're located in the third ward in the heart of Houston, they play at the Dynamo's soccer pitch. I don't know if you knew that, but they play at BBVA or whatever. BBVA, super cool, Corpus. Super unique, great venue. And, they're in one of the most talent-rich, football hotbeds in the country.
Sure.
I know they're not funded well. In fact, they're unfortunately, tragically, woefully underfunded. I heard that they had a fundraiser to get helmets for players this season. Freaking crazy. Awful, dude. It's awful. But man, they looked pretty good last week, dude. They really did. They are coming off, I'm no Texas Southern expert, right? So if you went to TSU, feel free to correct me. I scrolled through their schedule results for the past couple of years, and I think their 24-0 win over Southern last week at Globe Life Park in Arlington was probably their best single game performance since at least 2016.
Wow. So
it's 8 years, man. Wow. This program has been in a very dark place for a very long time. But I was pretty impressed with what they showed in Arlington.
Well, and what about the week prior to put up 27 points against UNT in Denton, Texas, and pretty good output just offensively? I mean, 458 total yards, 240 through the air. I mean, they definitely have firepower to a degree, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think to go up and put up 27 points against a conference mate is respectable for any FCS program.
Yeah, I don't have the box score for that game in front of me, but I did watch the first half of it. And if I recall correctly, I think UNT got out to a pretty massive lead before the half. So I think a lot of that yardage and points came against North Texas backups and stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, even if you're playing second string, third string against Conference USA competition, that's still a great showing from an FCS program, especially a team like Texas Southern has been so bad for so long. I think this team is a lot better than I think like the rankings are going to give credit for, and like the advanced stats are going to give them credit for. And they're definitely improving, and they have a lot of guys whose talent really pops off on film a lot more than I expected. When I did my game prep for Lamar last year, I was like, holy crap, these guys suck. Like, they look terrible. There wasn't a single guy that I saw on film that I was like, oh yeah, he could be a backup at UTSA. I think Texas Southern has several guys like that, right? And it's kind of surprising,
Okay. So it was 17-24 against UNT with 10 minutes left in the second quarter.
Yeah. I was way off.
And then UNT ran away with it with, scoring 3 more times before halftime. But up through the first quarter and part of that second quarter, TSU was definitely holding their own. But scoring some points against the ones for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Granted, UNLV just put up like a 60 burger on North Texas. So I don't know.
They did.
Yeah. I don't know how good that North Texas defense is nowadays. I don't know what happened there, but they fell off. I'm going to have to hit up my boy Miles and get the scoop. But yeah, this Texas Southern team, they've had the same head coach for a while, Clarence McKinney. Mm-hmm. Credit to them for sticking with him, because the team, like I said, has been really bad for a long time. This guy coached under Kevin Sumlin for most of his career, so it's kind of his coaching tree. And I think what might have been a career-saving move for Coach McKinney was going and recruiting Andrew Body out of Corpus Christi Miller. This guy that got a lot of love from a lot of Texas high school football junkies for like his last 3 years of high school, but no one really wanted to take a chance on him. And I never really understood why. He seemed to have all the tools. He looked really good, decent size, 6'2", built well. Yeah. He looks smaller than he is, right? But he's got decent size, He's actually, third all time in Texas high school football passing history with over 13,000 yards in his career.
Holy shit. Wow. What?
Yes, dude, he's a stud. What? He's a stud, man. He's a stud. Yeah, and he already passed for 2,500 yards as a true freshman last year. He's already second team all conference quarterback in the SWAC. This guy's legit, dude. He's a really good player.
Holy cow, dude. That is amazing. Yeah. That is extremely impressive. Third all time. Man.
The only thing he's missing is arm strength, really. Like, he doesn't have the ability to really push the ball down the field.
Okay.
And this is a take. But right now, Andrew Body, I think, is what Frank Harris was in like 2018.
Wow.
Really, really smart player, super high football IQ, makes the right read, makes the right throw, but can't really push it downfield on you, right? Anything past 15 yards, he's going to struggle with his touch a little bit. The ball doesn't really pop out of his hand, right? Frank's come a long way, right? I think Frank has that now. And Frank is a way better athlete than Body is as far as running the ball. And Body's a little bit of a dual threat. I think he had like 200 rushing yards last year or something like that. But as far as like his ability as a passer and like how he runs the Tigers offense, I think there's a lot of similarities to a very young Frank Harris.
Very interesting. Wow. How about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
So obviously with him not having the strongest of arm, their offense is a lot of up tempo and a lot of like quick checks to his receivers, right? And they're going to try to like lull you to sleep, like air raid style, quick slant, bubble screen, quick slant, bubble screen, running back flare, right? And they're just trying to, they kind of use the pass game as an extension of their run game, as you see a lot of teams do nowadays. They throw some RPO in there. Nothing that's super out of the ordinary, but Body just does a great job running and managing that offense. It's rare to see him make a throw that, is turnover worthy, as they say. So I'm really impressed with the guy. Obviously, it's going to be a huge step up for them in competition this week. And their pass protection is really, really bad. Their offensive line really struggles moving their feet. You even saw it in that Southern game that, they won 24-0. A lot of plays where Body had to just scramble around the pocket like his life depended on it. And he takes a lot of sacks they're there in a second and they're to him before he could even make his first read. So, I think that's probably the biggest thing that holds this offense back is that, the pass protection is just not there. Right. And with Body not having a strong of an arm, he needs time to wind up and deliver if they're going to try to throw it downfield. So definitely UTSA's biggest, opportunity on the defensive side of the ball is they really should be able to get a lot of pressure on Body. They'll want to make sure they contain him in the pocket and not let him escape out because he can't throw on the run pretty well. He can throw across his body a little bit, but I think they should be able to get a lot of quarterback pressure this week.
He's got a weapon there that he throws the ball a lot to. That's a San Antonio product, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Derek Morton. I've been shocked lately. I'm coming across a lot of guys in college and professional football that are receivers from San Antonio that I had never heard of until recently.
How about that?
Some kind of NFL, and I can't remember, some school in the Northwest side. I was like, dude, I've never heard that guy's name in my life. And I'm a junkie for this stuff, dude. I live and breathe it. But yeah, Derek Morton is, I think, a junior at a San Antonio Johnson. Again, a guy that I never heard of. He's a very great player. He's got great hands. And when he catches the ball in the open field, he can really like hit the burners. He's not super silky smooth coming out of his breaks like a Zachary Franklin. But he's pretty good after the catch, more of a Josh Cephas type of player, so definitely the one to key in on. I think UTSA will probably shade his side of the field with safety help because he's by far their best weapon at the skill position. But they do have a pretty solid group of running backs as well. I don't think any of the three guys really stand out as like a super elite back. Sure. But they rotate like 3 or 4 guys that all do good things and all had, I think, above 4 yards per carry on the year. So they're going to keep those guys fresh and all of them are pretty decent runners for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about their defense?
Defense is interesting. Yeah.
The shutout against Southern.
Yeah. So the shutout was a little bit misleading because I think Southern almost outgained Texas Southern.
Really?
They went 0 for 4 on fourth down conversions is the big thing. And I think they had 2 or 3 picks. One of the picks was in the Texas Southern end zone, right? So they were right there about to score. And it was like a tip ball interception. So, shutout's a shutout. Shutout's a shutout, right? But it wasn't like they just imposed their will and just grounded Southern into the dirt.
Total yardage is the same. Total yardage is the same. 352 total yards, both sides. Yeah.
Right. Yep. So my take on this group is they're very speedy and they've got some good ball hawks in the secondary.
Okay.
Their defensive line is definitely undersized, but they're quick. They're really quick off the ball.
Right.
I saw a lot of plays against both North Texas and Southern where they fired off really quickly and they got some penetration in the backfield. But once the offensive line kind of got their hands on them, they had a hard time continuing to press into the pocket, right? So I think this is a great test for Ben Rios and DeAndre Marshall if they're going to get some run at offensive tackle, because these Texas Southern defensive linemen aren't big enough and strong enough to just like really overpower these guys. Maybe they will. I don't know. But you just feel a lot more comfortable with them than like some 290-pound guy like a Jordan Ferguson in Middle Tennessee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of my fear is like you put Ben Rios in for the first time and it's against Jordan Ferguson, like a 3-time All-Conference USA player, you know,
just gets handled.
So,
yeah.
You're right. Exactly. So I think this is a good starting point for them. But that's not to minimize those guys. I mean, they are players. Like you look at their Pro Football Focus grades and all those guys grade out really, really well. They're disruptive in the backfield. And I think they can do a good job of like getting into the gaps against like zone running, right? They can kind of shoot through. So if there's a missed assignment or an offensive lineman is slow to get over and slide the protection or whatever, I think that's when you can see those guys make an impact. They got some pretty good players behind them at the second level as well. Let's see, what are the names? Oh yeah, Tariq Cooper. I think he's number 44. That guy really impressed me as well. He's got really good size for a SWAC player. And Jacob Williams. Those are the two starting inside linebackers. Both of them really good players. Really good players. They've got two guys on the edge as well, DeMonterio Anderson and Michael Atkins. Both of those guys can be pretty disruptive. And then the inside guys are Vera Montes Pippins and Tyler Martinez. All those guys are solid, man. Those are really good FCS players for sure. I think pretty much any of those guys, I think could contribute to UTSA if they're on the roster. Would they be starting? No. But I think all those guys at least have the talent to be a contributor at the Conference USA level, which is kind of shocking to say about a Texas Southern team because they've been so bad for so long, right? It's one thing to say that about SFA, Sam Houston State, North Dakota State, teams like that. But Texas Southern, like I was kind of shocked at what I saw in film. Like they're a lot better than the ranking shows for sure.
Was the last FCS school that we played in the Alamo Dome Southern?
No, it was Lamar.
It was Lamar last year. We did play Lamar last year. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a total blowout, like 65-0.
Oh my gosh. Like yeah. We crushed them.
Yeah.
Well, those Southern games we would manhandle Southern pretty well too. But
yeah,
sounds like TSU might be a notch up than our last couple of FCS opponents. That's what I'm getting at.
Maybe so. I think they have the potential to. And I think you're going to see UTSA play a super stupid deep bench this week. Because they have so many injuries, right? They're going to have to. And because they've been in 3 tie contests, with the exception of maybe the last 5 minutes of the Texas game, they haven't had the opportunity to get these guys deep on the bench into the games yet.
Right.
Typically, but by week 4, you've had at least one game that got out of hand early, right? And so UTSA is going to be kind of pressed to get those guys out on the field. I think Eddie Lee's going to have to get a lot of snaps because you need them ready to go, right?
How soon do you think we see him, Eddie?
Start of the third quarter, probably, if not earlier.
We didn't get a chance to talk about Eddie in Austin. Did you like the way he threw the ball there in the fourth quarter at the end of the game against UT? He didn't seem too flustered.
No.
He seemed to be pretty calm in there. He's moving the ball okay.
I was more impressed with his running than his throwing, which I was kind of surprised by, right? After he's seeing a little bit of him last year and in the spring game and stuff. I don't think he really had receivers open. So I don't know. It's tough to judge him.
Yeah. But he did kind of have the balls to take off with it. Yeah. Which I think was a little bit unexpected like for sure.
Yeah. A lot of times those young players get on the field with the bright lights over them and they just like show up, Eddie Lee was a pretty cool customer out there. So that was great to see.
That's right. For sure.
But yeah, if and when he sees the field against Texas Southern this week, which I think is almost a guarantee, he's going to have 2 guys in that secondary to really look out for. Mm-hmm. 2 cornerbacks, Cedric Williams and Isaiah Hamilton. Hamilton already has 2 picks this year, but I was actually more impressed with Cedric Williams, especially in that Southern game. It was just like he was always around the ball. Even when he got beat and his receiver was open, he still found a way to disrupt the play, get a hand on the ball, stuff like that. I think both those guys are pretty solid. Are they going to be able to hang with UTSA starting receivers? No, probably not. I don't think they're fast enough or athletic enough, but they have ball skills, right? So if it's a misthrown ball, I think those guys can come down with a pick for sure.
Oh, yeah. It's time for us to get a pick, man. We're overdue.
It really is, man. It really, really
It's
is.
really overdue for that pick.
UTSA has played 3 great quarterbacks through 3 games, and it's tough because the secondary's played pretty well, in my opinion, but they haven't had anyone slip up and give them an opportunity to capitalize off that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Body will either, dude. He does a great job taking care of the football. But it's needed, man. It's needed.
Yeah, we definitely need to get that. We definitely need to get that pick, man.
Yeah.
Golly, it's killing us.
Hey, that was a pretty good little Texas Southern preview, huh?
Well, I thought it was excellent. That's deep.
That was deep.
Super deep. Yeah.
That's why you subscribe to the Patreon, man. You get the deep analysis on the Patreon. This is just a sneak peek.
Deep cuts, man. Oh man, if you're not in that film room, I don't know what you're doing. It's film room breakdowns or something else, bro.
Yeah. Oh man, this game's on Stadium. I might have some difficulties there as well because those replays can be hit or miss for Stadium.
Right.
So my boy Bill Connolly for ESPN that does all the SP Plus advanced analytics. He does not give Texas Southern a snowball's chance in hell in this game. I think his projected margin is UTSA winning by like 42 points.
Holy cow.
I can't see that at all. Partially out of respect to the Tigers, but partially also because knowing where UTSA is at situationally right now. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I like to think that we do a better job defensively than North Texas did.
Sure.
I think that's a good barometer to have.
Sure.
I don't want to see Texas Southern break too far past the 20-point mark. I do think defense having such a hard time against these bigger caliber opponents the last 3 weeks, it's really, really been hard. Got to imagine there's a degree of maybe licking their chops to really get after it and go to town on some guys, more their size, maybe even a little bit smaller. So I think our defense does a hell of a job, but are we going to score 50 points if we're running twos for 2 quarters, half the ball game? I don't know about that. I think that's a little bit of a stretch.
Especially Traylor Smith still out too, right?
Yeah.
We know that Brennan Brady's healthy, but he's knocked up. You probably want to limit his carries. So you're looking at Kavorian Barnes and Ty Edwards as your only running backs, maybe a little Justin Rodriguez. So, it's not like you got like some big home run threats back there that are playing a lot too. So.
Right. Exactly that. If UTSA can get out to a comfy 21-0, 24-0 lead, I mean, start throwing in those twos there in the second quarter.
Early. Yeah, I agree.
It's not worth it. Yeah.
Yep.
We were smart to do that with Frank in the fourth quarter. I'm glad. I was glad that we pulled Frank as early as it was. When we were down 3 scores. There was no point in having him in that ball game.
Yeah, I was kind of laughing. Everyone was like texting me asking how Frank got hurt. I was like, the game's over, dude. You're not going to leave your starting quarterback out there for this. Like, no way.
8 minutes left and we're down by 3 scores.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, we did what we could. You know what I mean? Yeah. Was unfortunate Frank didn't get that touchdown pass in DKR.
I know.
And I know the replay on the Jumbotron looked like it was a surefire grab, but I had people telling me that were watching at home. They were like, nah, fam, it wasn't.
Yeah.
So,
well, I know that I probably made this Texas Southern team sound really scary, and they're good. They're good, and I think they're going to have a good season. But I'm still picking UTSA to win pretty handily. I would say handily. I got Texas Southern 17, UTSA 41.
Oh yeah. Okay. I was doing 42-14 UTSA.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
We've been pretty close on our predictions this year, and they've all been pretty spot on.
They all have been pretty close, relatively close. Yeah, for sure.
Noster Adrian, dude, you come from my throne. All right, man. It's a long podcast. Let's get out of here. I'm taking this week off, man. I got to work on my house.
No Alamo Dome. No Alamo Dome for your boy this week. I'm sorry. No Alamo Dome.
You're not either.
This week.
Oh, God. I'm sorry, guys.
Gotta tap that out. Let it down.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll be back for Western Kentucky. At least I will, for sure.
100%. Oh, 1,000%. The 5 p.m. kickoff. Are you kidding me?
Oh, you day tripping it?
Can't wait. Oh, no, dude. I'm going to be tailgating for like 12 hours.
Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thanks as always for tuning in. Like I said, we got a mailbag episode coming up on Patreon, so be sure to subscribe. Go to alamoaudible.com to get all the details. We'll have a post on there if you want to submit a question. Please do.
Please do.
And, we'll see you guys back. We'll probably Wednesday-ish, something like that. We'll have it posted.